Hello, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's live discussion on The Expanse Season 6. We are here to talk about Season 6 of The Expanse as a whole, and I am joined here by some special guests. First of all, it's been 4 years, 3 years. It's been a really, really long time. A long time. The person, as I was saying before, it's really fitting that we're doing this live discussion, the final one for the show for now, but the final one for the show with you, because you're the one who got me into the show, and it was the first live discussion we ever did was with you. So Josh from Geeksiders, thank you so much for joining.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here. Glad to be back.
Cool. And also joining us as always, my sister Alyssa. Alyssa, thanks so much for being here for this as well.
Yes, thank you for having me, Mark. And as you can see, I am no longer Alyssa Anaris. I changed my name to match that of my mother, whose values I more align with now. So, just in case you were wondering.
All right, so seasons. I think everyone knows what I think of season 6. I've done a whole bunch of videos on it. So let's start. We'll start with our special guest first. Josh, I actually have no idea what you thought. I know you told me earlier that you were loving, you thought it was amazing why you wanted to do this discussion, but what were your thoughts on season 6 of The Expanse?
Season 6 overall is probably my favorite season out of The Expanse. 5 was great. 6 absolutely blew me away. It was so good. Yeah. I mean, what else? You said you wanted to go character by character and storyline by storyline, but overall, 6 was absolutely phenomenal. If I was going to rate it among like my favorite science fictions, The Expanse overall is up near the top, and season 6 is one of my favorite single seasons of any science fiction show I've ever watched.
Yeah, I actually very much agree. I pretty much said the same thing in my last video, that season 6 was my favorite season of The Expanse. Although I said that last year about season 5 and I hadn't changed my mind.
Well, they were both so good.
Yeah, they were both good. Yes, absolutely. And I liked 6 better though because it was more succinct, and I think it had more character stuff. But I'm saying now that I like season 2 better than season 5, but I'm still saying that season 6 is better than season 2 because it dipped a bit. But yeah, and I also agree with you what you said about that being one of my favorite seasons of television ever. It's probably in the top 10 for me. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. So now let's get the opinion that's not so big on Alyssa. Your thoughts on
Wait, not so what?
Not so big, not as big on season 6 as me and Josh are. Or am I wrong?
What were you talking about? Like, no, I wouldn't.
Wrong?
I mean, maybe a little less. Like, I'm probably not putting it in top 10 of all time seasons of any show
I
ever.
didn't think you would.
And every year The Expanse comes on, I think it's the best season because I have never gone back and rewatched all of the other seasons. So I've only seen each season once. So it's hard for me. Every year I was like, oh, that's the best season. But I really would have to do a full rewatch, which one day I will do. Not now because I'm in the middle of watching Daredevil, which I've never seen. And I'm getting rid of my Amazon Prime because all of the shows that I watch on it are gone and I hate giving Jeff Bezos money. So not now, but one day I will rewatch all The Expanse and then I will give you a ranking order of which season. But just off the top of my head, I'm like, yeah, season 6 is the best one. But I've said that every year for the last 3 years. but I think that season 6 used the 6 episodes well. I know that a lot of people were concerned about the 6 episodes, that maybe it's just going to be too rushed. And we do have you and I have a little bit of disagreement on the finale, whereas I do think in places it was a little bit rushed. But overall, I think people's concerns about the season being too rushed was completely unwarranted. I think you're right. It was very succinct. They got rid of a lot of the filler and the unnecessary stuff that they've had in previous seasons and just got straight to the point. Though I don't think it was perfect. I do think They made really good use of the 6 episodes, and I don't think that it was as big of a problem as some people feared it might be. Could I have used another episode? I'm sure could have done another episode and not been too fillery, but it didn't need it. I think it did well with the 6 episodes. So yeah, I absolutely love this season. I also think it's the best season of The Expanse, but I really would have to go back and watch all of them to be sure. But the only one that I think it was episode 4 that I was a little bit down on more than you. That I was like, it's like a 7. I thought it went the one with Philip and spending all that time with that dude that I thought it was like. But other than that, like every episode was like great. Almost every episode was just great from beginning to end, and I was just really into it. So, yeah, I still really love this season overall.
Mark, you're muted.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe I misspoke then. Maybe you're not sit down on it after all. I do know that you liked the finale, but just not as much as I did, because I think it was one of the best finales of any show ever.
Yes, that is correct. I don't.
Yeah.
It's not that to me. As I said, I felt it was a little rushed at places. And not having read the books, not having any idea what Marco's fate was going to be, I was very disappointed with. I was like, "That's it? That's all that happens." And I do think that if you had said in your review that in the books they spend a little more time with the build-up, with like they're there for 2 weeks, like all the Rosenfeld crew down there, and I do think if they had put a little more time in that and had a little more build-up, I think I would have maybe been a little less like, what the hell just happened? And it was so quick. I thought there should have been some, I know we already got the like Holden, the con moment from our earlier episode, but I still thought I wanted to see some sort of interchange between them. So I was slightly disappointed in that scene. However, where I do agree with you is the ending. I said that on our video that I did, that ending with Naomi telling giving a little speech while she's hugging with Holden and showing Philip, I said that's like a close second for me to Picard playing cards as far as the very end scene. Just assuming that this is the very end scene, I'm not going to speculate into maybe it won't be, whatever. But assuming that it is, like I'd say that scene and the scene before with Holden in the transport union, and that was badass. So I think to me, like the ending is what really makes it phenomenal. I had some issues with some of the stuff earlier in the finale, but I still give it an 8 out of 10, just not a 10 out of 10.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah. So I kind of lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I can jump in.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Now, I do agree with Alyssa that there were some. I did take issue with some things in the finale. I think Philip got off way too easy. That kid did not deserve to get off and go off on it. Oh yeah, I wanted Philip to die almost as much as I wanted Marco to die.
Oh my gosh, I have not heard that opinion.
But by the end of the series, I hated Philip with a passion. And I wish there had been a little more of a resolution of the resurrection dogs. The 2 kids kind of running into the forest, and then like, okay, what happens to those kids? I was really wanting to get into that. But that's like one is a creative choice, and you can agree with the creative choice or not. It's but the one thing I would say is like one and more was the dogs. I wanted to see what exactly was going on with them. I loved the nod to season 2 with the proto-molecule hybrid. I thought that was awesome. I just wanted more of that and more of a resolution of that.
Well, if they ever adapt books 8 and 9, you will get more on that story.
but that's why I'm going to read the books, because as we were talking before we started the stream was I figured there's going to be more details that come out in the books that just don't ever get shown on TV. That's why I want to get into reading the books, because right now I've listened to book 1. I did not retain any of it. What I remember from that is what I remember from watching season 1.
Yeah. All right, so I'll just jump in the chat real quick. Say hello to Dina and Brandon. Thanks so much for joining. Dina saying, I'm in the minority here. Season 2 and 3 are still my favorites." Well, you might be in the minority here, but not elsewhere. Not in that overall, because I've heard a lot of people express that same opinion. And you know me, I still can't get behind season 3.
Season
Like,
3 is definitely my least favorite, mostly because of the second half of the season. I did not like it at all. But season 2, for a while, was my favorite, and I have to go back and rewatch to make that determination. But I remember really loving season 2, especially their kind of mid-season finale sort of episode.
Well, to be clear, I want to be clear. I love every season of the show.
Yeah.
I'm just not as big on season 3. I still like season 3 a lot, but I feel like, and again, they say I'm a snooty book reader, but I think like the book 3 material was not adapted well. That was rushed. People were saying this season was rushed. I think we're totally wrong. It wasn't rushed. I think they did it perfect justice. The book 3 material, that was rushed.
I'm not having read the books. I felt the second part of season 3, the part that was adapting the third book, was extremely rushed. I can tell you that without having read a word of the book, that it felt really rushed to me. So it's not just you being a snooty book reader.
And then we have Brandon saying, "Mark Holden was a pop singer in the 1970s in my country. Hence, I'm chuckling at your choice of screen name." Yes, but you spelled Mark with a K. I spelled my name with a C, so totally different. Anyway, so yeah, Josh, unless you have any more final thoughts on that, we can move on for everything else.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. So let's go ahead and jump into some of these storylines. We'll start with the big one, the words not tell you storyline, go by some of these character moments. I know it's hard not to get them intermixed, but I'm going to start with lumping two characters together, Bobby and Amos. Bamos. Because
Bamos, maybe?
Because I freaking love their interactions this season. I talked about this before, how amazing it is the shows always put Amos with a different character that he bonds with every season. We had Prax, we had Anna, we had Wade, and we had Clarissa last year. And we get a bit of Amos Clarissa this year, but I feel like Clarissa is more of her own. And it was more of the Bobby and Amos connection, where the two of them were such a perfect fit because they were so similar to just love bullshitting each other and one-upping each other. If you ever saw, I don't know, Alyssa, you ever got around to seeing that X-ray?
I did actually finally watch all those X-rays. I did.
Yeah, the one with Bobby and Amos was amazing. I don't know if you saw that. Josh, did you see the X-rays, the bonus features that Amazon had?
I have not watched any of the bonus features yet.
What episode was the Bobby and Amos one? That was episode 3, right?
3 or 4?
His turn.
4, yeah.
I didn't even know there were bonus features until yesterday.
All right. Well, most of them are decent, like they're good, but they're decent. But you gotta watch the Bobby and Amos one. That was amazing. It was actually written by Wes Chatham, who plays Amos.
Okay.
And Frankie Adams, who plays Bobby, said that was the last actually scene that she shot for the entire show, which was interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, I love the interactions between the two, and just and seeing that. I think it paid off in the finale where Bob, Amos is like, "Let's go fight him head on." Bobby's like, "Okay, let's do it." Amos is like, "All right, everybody, get ready." He just shut up and left, and then just did a badass sacrifice. But then Amos shows up and saves her at the last minute, and just holds her down while she's getting the shit shot out of her. It was amazing payoff, and especially the speech Bobby gave about how what's really important is those who watch your flank, and here's Amos here to watch her flank. This is one of the things I loved about the season. Josh, we'll start with you with your thoughts on the whole anything Bobby Amos related.
You called out when Bobby went off and kind of tried to take the turret or whatever it was single-handedly, and Amos came in and saved the day. Single favorite Bobby Amos moment right there. Close second is when they were on the station, and they're like, and Amos was like, "I'm gonna go hit the Bravo. You want to come with?" And she's like, "Are you inviting? Or are you inviting?" He's like, either. And then she goes off with him. I'm like, yeah, that is the epitome of friendship right there. And I love that Bobby was with the Rocinante crew for basically most of the season. Like, she spent a little time away from them, but not much. I love her interaction with the whole crew, really.
Um, I keep muting myself. All right, so I did want to say that I recently watched an interview with Frank Adams, who plays Bobby, and the interviewer asked her specifically, did Bobby go with Amos or did she go with Amos? And she was saying, well, she went with Amos. She didn't go with him. That's what she thinks. That's just her interpretation that they went
She's
together.
wrong. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
It's for the just for that scene, I don't think it matters. Personally, I think she went with Amos.
Yeah. Well, I've said this before, but she is the one who brought that up. Like, Amos didn't suggest anything about going with him. He didn't say that was her idea. And she was just testing the waters to see what his response was. And he's like, yeah, sure, I don't care, whatever. So it definitely happened. I do actually kind of like that they left it ambiguous. That it's, I had said before, no, they have to tell us. But actually, I think it's kind of fun to leave it up to your interpretation. But I agree with Josh. He definitely 100% went with Amos. And I like that, ultimately it doesn't matter. Like they just got drunk and did it, whatever, it doesn't change anything about their friendship. And I think that's great. I think that this is my single favorite character combination of the season and of all those different Amos ones that you talked about. I think they saved the best for last. This is my absolute favorite. I've been calling for this whole time. Like, they need to put Bobby and Amos together. Like, they would be so good together. And yes, I did finally go and watch that X-Ray, and you're right, it's fantastic. I loved it. So.
Yeah, what is he says something when Bobby threatens to kick his ass? He's like, "Oh, do you want me to wait here while you go get your suit?" Like, just the relation, just the interactions I had with so. Oh yeah, and it was actually in the show itself where Amos is like, "What is that suit even made out of?" She's like, "It's made out of Mars, honey bun." Like, I just love the interaction of these two. And quick shout out in the chat. We got a super chat from Carissa. Carissa, thanks so much for joining, saying Amos and Bobby definitely smashed. Well, okay, I think that's the consensus here, and we're going with that. And no one's ever going to tell me otherwise, or if they do, they're wrong. So that's fine. Anyway, all right. So, any more on Bobby and Amos, or are we good to move on? Yeah, good to move on. Cool. All right, let's talk about Clarissa. I'm sorry, but her like redemption turn in season 3 totally was not earned. But they made up for that this season, in my opinion, because they completely earned her redemption arc here. And the scenes with her were just simply like, I didn't know they could be this good. And it was such a huge elevation from what the books did, because we actually get to see her interact with Holden and Naomi, and the way that Naomi goes in this journey of like treating her like shit at first, and then she realizes she's just doing that because she's jealous of her, because she gets to wash the blood off her hands, and she wanted that for Philip, but then she realizes that and she moves on. And when Clarissa almost like sacrifices herself to save the ship, and Naomi goes there and like, gotcha, this is part of the crew. And then we had that touching moment too when Holden told her that she was part of the crew. And then she's also there to the only person to actually stand up for Holden when he didn't kill Marco, and saying that he did the right thing and never feel bad about not killing someone. So she had some of the most powerful scenes this season. I thought she was her redemption was absolutely amazing. I didn't know this character could be this good. So Alyssa, we'll start with you this time. What did you think of this whole Clarissa storyline?
Yeah, I just mentioned earlier that the second half of season 3 is my least favorite of the whole show, and she had a lot to do with that. I really did not like this character in season 3 at all. I liked her a little better in season 5. I think they began her redemption arc there, but I agree with you. I love what they did with her in season 6. She had a few great moments when she has that first conversation with Holden when. Holden basically is reaming her out, but saying you're a part of the crew, and she has this huge smile on the face. And Amos is like, "You realize he just chewed you out, right?" And she's like, "He said I'm a part of the crew," and like that was so great because I had that same reaction when Holden said that. I was like, "Oh, he said she was part of the crew." So, and I love that the character had that reaction as well. And I loved her speech to Holden later on, as you kind of mentioned, when she's the only one who stood up for Holden. And she was like, you know what? I've murdered a lot of people. I've killed a lot of people. Some deserved it, some didn't. Choosing not to kill someone is never a bad thing. And I thought that was a really great piece of advice coming from her. I really loved that. And then, of course, in the finale, for me, the finale was the character interactions were always the best, and I loved Naomi and Naomi saying her. Loved it. So, yeah, I do. I absolutely agree with you. It's a character that I did not like in season 3 that it's really I love now after season 6.
Cool. Now, real quick, want to jump in the chat. We got another super chat. Thank you so much for Chriso. So I think the show had to give Clarissa a bigger role for her to give better acting performances compared to prior seasons. And this is a good point because when I did coverage season 5, I talked about how there's a couple scenes in particular. I was like, ooh, this is not very good acting. But I think her acting this season was amazing. I think it was top notch. I'm not sure why that is. I don't know. It just worked a lot better this season. Yeah. So, and oh yes, Josh, you can watch the bonus feature of the X-Ray on episode 3. That's the one you need to watch. Brandon points out the one with Amos and Bobby. Anyway, Josh, your thoughts on the whole Clarissa storyline?
The Clarissa story from season 5 through season 6. Well, what you were talking about with her redemption arc from season 3 and just the slow burn of that, and it wasn't just she does something heroic and now everything's fine. No, they burned that over 2 seasons, and that's how you do a redemption arc, and then that payoff at the end where she almost gives her life for the crew. It was I can't think of a redemption arc offhand that has been executed as well as hers.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I was just thinking, like, for a little while, I was thinking Jaime Lannister, and then they just completely undid it at the end of season 8. So it ends up not being a redemption arc.
I don't talk about Game of Thrones anymore.
Yeah, I'm try not to. Yeah, I understand.
But
trying to forget.
And then of course her cancer diagnosis was a huge moment, and I was like, oh man. And I don't know, I'm kind of glad we didn't see, at the end of her life being emaciated and body just riddled with cancer and dying weak and sad. And so I'm kind of glad it ended where it did. But then I'm like, I really want to know, where does her story end? Because I know, like, the last book is like 30 years later, so I don't even know if she's present in that book yet.
Do you want me not to tell you?
You can tell me. It's going to be, I read so slow, it's going to be 4 years before I get to that book.
And I don't care if you tell me either.
She's in book 7. She is in book 7. even though it's 30 years later, which doesn't square with this 5-year thing. So that made me raise an eyebrow when they had that.
Medicine? Future medicine?
Yeah, that's my assumption, that they found some way, like future medicine advanced to allow her to live longer or something. But she's not in good shape. She's still being in book 7. She still has that problem with her mods or whatever. But she is there. So Oh God, what the hell else was I going to say? The writers have so Alex in the chat says the writer has said Clarissa could likely live many more years like Stephen Hawking. Okay, so that's probably what they're going to do. So if they ever do adapt book 7, then you will be able to see.
So wait, Clarissa's going to be in a wheelchair and have a little electronic voice. I'm sorry. The Stephen Hawking comparison.
Anywho, let's go ahead and move over to a Naomi Negata, who I think's had. I don't know why so many people love to shit on this character. I always thought that she was, yeah, I don't get that. Like, I always thought she was a really strong character. And I thought, in particular, season 5 and 6 were very, very, very strong seasons for her. I thought they really fleshed out. In fact, and this is an opinion I've heard from many people, is that her the way they did her in the show is actually much, much better in the books, because a lot of people complained about her in the books as being just like a side character who's there to be Holden's girlfriend, where in the show they definitely give her more agency, they give her more power, more focus, they develop her more, and I think that's definitely most true out of seasons 5 and 6, and I think they definitely continue that this season with having her have PTSD, having her go through the story arc where she was like feeling like shit for having to hunt down people, the other belters that she knew and grew up with, and how it was eating her alive. And then she kind of came in the conclusion by helping Drummer. She ended up helping herself. And then of course she had the conflicts between her and Holden when Holden refused to kill Marco because it would kill her son. She made her feel guilty, and she confronted Holden about it. And of course, her own journey with forgiving Clarissa, and eventually, at the end, like the finale, where she came to terms with, as far as she knew, she was killing her own son, and she was the one. I love that she was the one that pressed the button that killed Marco, but seeing like the raw emotional effect it took on her, I think again, amazing performances, amazing moment, brought me to tears, and of course, as Alyssa mentioned earlier, ending the whole show with her and Holden, sort of showing how God, they're the best couple in sci-fi. I mean, just ending on them was like the perfect way to end the show. So Josh, let's start with your feelings on Naomi.
I love Naomi. She's not my favorite character in The Expanse. That's reserved for Amos. But I think, to me, it seems pretty objective that from season 1 through season 6, Naomi's got the best character arc. Especially in these last 2 seasons, where she's trying her damnedest to redeem her son and get him away from Marco, and she can't do it. And as far as she knows, Philip died with Marco, and just the tragedy of that. And like you said, her reaction when she pushed the button, and as far as she knows, she just killed her son. And just the acting it just got better as the series went on, and Dominique Tipper, I think, is her name. And I don't know if you follow her on Twitter. She's amazing. So it's one of the best character arcs, if not the best character arc in the whole show.
Cool. Alyssa, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't get the Naomi hate at all. I don't, and that she's a bad actor or any of that. They're watching a different show than I am. I just completely disagree with that. I think that she has an incredible arc, especially the last 2 seasons. Again, I don't remember the other seasons very clearly, but she's just always so conflicted. It's just such a very interesting story arc that she has. Having her son be taken in by his father, who is this really shitty person, and trying to get him back. And then failing, she thinks, to make any impression on him, and then being forced to kill him, and going through all of that. And then all along, she's just kind of been split between, she's never been, like a lot of the characters, like, I'm only for Mars, I'm only for Earth, I'm only for the belt. And she gets, a lot of flack from other belters because she is flying around in a ship that has somebody from Earth, someone from Mars. And, she's always been kind of, complex like that, and she's such an interesting and complex character. And as far as you mentioned, Holden and her being the best couple in sci-fi, I think they're one of the best couples I've seen on any show, but definitely in sci-fi. Um, I think I mentioned this before, maybe when I was on in the live chat, that I had just recently rewatched Star Trek Voyager, and so I got a lot of Tom Paris and Belana Torres, and that's just like, I'm not even talking about, forget about Chakotay and 7 and 9. That's bad, but it's only in the last couple episodes. And they had Tom Paris and Belana Torres for like 4 seasons, and it just doesn't work. They had no chemistry. So like watching a show like that and then jumping over to The Expanse and seeing like what a real genuine like relationship is like, because they love each other so much and yet they have real conflict, they have real arguments. Like it just feels so real and genuine, and their love for each other feels so real and genuine. So I agree, best couple in sci-fi, and if not one of the best in all of television.
Absolutely. Now, in the chat, Brandon says it's interesting about Naomi, isn't it? Earlier in the day, I was watching her talk to Drummer, and Naomi's Belter accent got much more pronounced. This is something we talked about in season 3 when Naomi was on the ship with the other Belters, because she does, and this has happened throughout this season too. Whenever she is with Drummer or other Belters, she does. Her Belter accent gets a lot more pronounced, but we talked about that's kind of natural for people, who grew up with an accent like that, and then when they're with other people with the accent, they tend to speak more with that accent. It becomes more pronounced. It's kind of a normal thing, and I think that's a really nice touch too that that the show added in. And it does make a lot of sense. Now, Alex is saying in the chat that Alex's favorite scene, Naomi's scene, is when she takes her first steps on Ellis, and that was a really powerful scene. But I had to say my favorite Naomi scene is when she jumps out into space in season 5 without a suit to escape the shit. Like that was such a badass intense scene.
Not only that scene, but like every subsequent scene where she keeps having to like go around, like just that whole 45 minutes almost of the show with, oh gosh, and it takes such a toll on her body. No wonder she had PTSD after that.
Yeah, Alex in the chat says that it's called code switching. I suppose that's the accent things. I do know when I go back to New Zealand, I don't know if my accent changes, but I definitely switch my dialect back to saying, footpath and boot of the car and stuff like that I wouldn't say over here. But yeah, so so it would be similar to that. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and move over to James Holden. I don't know. I think he might have had one of the best story arcs in the show. I think his story arc is pretty complete, because he starts out the show as like always being honest, always wanting to keep everyone informed, telling everyone, oh, the Mars blew out the Canterbury, not realizing, hey, that's going to start a war and riots and people are going to die over this. But he's a bit naive and just would think that it's okay just to throw everything out there and that everything, always do the good and right thing. And the season, the show ends with him lying and deceiving and moving these political gains in order to do the right thing. So to me, that's perfect character growth. And that's another one of the X-rays that they had, which is also a decent one. I think it was season 5 that showed Holden when he was like 10 years ago when he was young. And
episode 5, you mean?
Episode 5. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, the X-ray for episode 5. He was young and carefree, and they showed him how he first came on board the Canterbury in the first place, and as great seeing that comparison, just to how like young and naive he used to be as compared to the kind of person he is now. And also not just like what he did with Drummer, because that was amazing too, and that he kind of out politically foxed Alexarella was amazing, but also for simply like the way he's like, I noticed this early in the season, the way he was very tolerant and understanding of Naomi. The way when she was going through the PTSD, she's like, when she had that panic attack, he's like, do you want to talk about it? And she's like, no. He's like, okay, fine, whatever. And, I'm here for you. Like, to me, that's huge growth, because earlier season he would have like pushed her and like, come on, blah, 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 blah. But he didn't push her. He sort of knew this sort of step back. And it seems like he just came a long way. And it was like, really great. And also the way he forgave Clarissa, I think that's something he wouldn't have been able to do before. So I think I loved his character growth throughout the entire show, and I thought this season was a great way to sort of show how far he's come. Alyssa, we'll start with you with Holden.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. He's come a really long way, and it's really, I think it was really great that they had that X-ray for episode 5, where you see where he first joins the Canterbury, and you can just see like how far he's come. I mean, you also see him kind of hanging out with the Belters, and that scene. So he's always had that, just openness to the other, to the Belters and to people who aren't from Earth, and he's always had that goodness. But you're right, he was naive back then. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the scene where he where he resigns from the transport union was just fantastic. He outfoxed Alexarella in her own game in the realm of politics, and I loved it so much. So yeah, I think he's had a really lot of character growth too. And there was one story arc he had. Was it season 2? I think that I hated when he was like Ahab going on this revenge kick against the protomolecule. Was that 2?
That was season 2. Yes.
Yeah, I remember like hating that. And fortunately, that was short-lived. He got past that, and then I think he really, really grew from there. So, yeah, I agree. Again, I'd probably have to go back and do this rewatch I said I'm going to do one day before I could determine who has the better story arc between Naomi and Holden. But I think they did both grow a lot over the 6 seasons. So I think it's probably, you could say both of them had really good long-term story arcs.
All right, Josh, tell us what you thought of James Holden.
I thought Holden's story this season and throughout the series was absolutely fantastic. I loved the twist at the end where he bait and switch. Guess what? Drummer's going to be president. And his interaction with Alexarella after that, where she tried to basically, she's going, you're fucking up. You just ruined everything. And he's like, nah, settle it down. Everything's going to be fine. I love that interaction. One thing I did notice, the actor Stephen Strait, I think is his name, he looked really thin the last 2 seasons, and I don't know if that was something to do that I forgot maybe from the previous seasons. Why he seemed skeletal almost sometimes.
So I can answer that because he talked about that in an interview. He said that he purposely did it as a choice to show the kind of strain and pressure that Holden.
I wondered about that. I thought maybe that was it.
Yeah.
So that was his choice. That wasn't something like some producer or director told him to do.
Yeah, no. As far as I know, it was the actor's choice.
Dude, that's freaking devotion right there. I've been trying to lose weight forever. I can't imagine that skinny on purpose.
Yeah, it was kind of easy for these actor types because they have like personal trainers and
nutritionists and stuff.
Yeah,
they do any of this stuff on their own.
Yeah. Yes, and there's Allison in the chat. Allison, thanks so much for joining, saying yes, the actor lost weight for the last season. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so God, I love the Rosenfeld so much. This is so awesome this year. But let's go ahead and move on from the Rosenfeld, and let's talk about another surprise character who started out as like a supporting character who's just like this, second in command chief security of Fred Johnson, and now she's like the best character in the fucking show. He pretty much became the star. Let's talk about Kamina Drummer. Yeah, I really, really love what they did with her this season too, because it did a similar arc where she starts the season in a very, very terrible place. She has no place to go, no place to hide. Everyone is trying to kill her, but then she happens to meet this character named Walker, who Walker barely appears this season, I think, and I love him so much. And I told you he's an amazing character. Always loves his quips, and it was actually really sad when he earned pretty awesome actually too when he sacrificed himself at the end, and we see her interactions with her family, with Joseph and Michio, and I love the interactions they have. Where Joseph was like, "Oh, Michio can't hack it," and he ended up like getting his arm crushed in the thing, and Michio's the one that comes in like a badass and saves him. That was really sort of a nice send off, and then having Drummer feel like she's abandoned and that she lost her family, she lost everything, and she has to submit to the Earthers. But then Naomi coming in and giving this speech, and God, does one of the best moments of the entire show where Naomi just said, the only thing left is to do, oh God, I'm fucking up the speech, but she said something like, you just got to help those who you love, and how that really broke Drummer down. And she was just like, fuck you, while she was hugging her, because of that unrequited love situation between them, which is also amazing and played very well this season. But then having Drummer come in and seeing her in the finale where the ship got torn to shreds in that giant hole in the hull, but she's still ready to like sacrifice her life to kill Marco. But Walker beat her to it, but then she's able to like step up and become the president of the transport union. I love that nod of respect that she gives Holden too after they did. That's really good. So Alyssa, let's start with you on Kamina Drummer.
Yeah, absolutely great character. Although I do remember complaining about our season 5 story for most of it. I remember for most of the season not being on board with the storyline that they gave her in that season. But season 6, she was fantastic. I loved everything about her. I agree. I love Walker, even though we barely see him. And she's just totally badass at the end. And the last time I was on here with you, Mark, we were talking about episode 5, and I was just so pumped when she met Alexarella, because it's been two of my favorite characters throughout the show. And then it occurred to me, then I was like, oh, right, they've never actually met before. And fantastic. And then, the way that she sticks up for the belt toward the end, even though there are belters who were yelling things at her, for being, and actually that one, the lady from the station who ends up sitting next to her at the table, she was one of the people who was like yelling shit at her before, but she earned their respect. And I completely love her arc too. Actually, maybe she had the best arc going from, as you said, Cornus, sort of this minor character like this security chief for Fred Johnson, to being essentially like not the leader of the belt, but like a very important figure from the belt at the end. And I love this character and loved her arc as well.
I also had to mention the badass speech she gave after she like robbed Marco the stuff, and it's like where she was like, "This is for the traitor, the coward, Marco. Live empty, die shamed." Like I was like, yeah, I was like cheering at that moment. But anyway, Josh, how awesome a character is Kamina Drummer?
Kamina Drummer is fantastic. One of the things that throughout the course of the show that kind of bothered me a little bit was when you picture like the stereotypical belter, they're come across as not that bright, a lot of them. And Drummer is like, I like that she's the antithesis of what you would see as the typical belter. And she's strong, very headstrong, very stubborn, but highly intelligent and calculating. And that moment at the end, like what you said, when the camera pans and she's sitting in the captain's chair and there's a big freaking hole in the ship and she's ready to die, I was just like, oh man, here we go. Here, waterworks are going to start. And then nope. I forgot the guy's name. I just spaced on it, but he comes in
Walker.
and takes her.
Yeah.
Walker. I wanted to say Whitaker, and I knew that wasn't right. He comes in and takes her place, and it was but again, he was a great character too. I was kind of bummed. I was like, man, we got so little of him, and he was so good. But I was relieved. Like I just took a huge sigh of relief when he came in. I was like, okay, Drummer's fine. It was one of those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because I was just talking to someone I work with who I've been bothering them to watch The Expanse, and they finally got around to it, and they like blew through the first 2 seasons in like a week. I was like, oh my god, this show's amazing! How come I never heard of this before? And so he just watched the episode where Drummer in season 2, where Drummer's just kind of the side character, but then when the terrorist or the other faction or whatever takes over as Tycho, and she steals Alex's gun and like shoots the guy and kills him. And I was like, and I told him, I was like, yeah, this character has become so important. She's going to be a major character. She's like, yeah, I can actually see that from that one scene because she was such a badass. So it is amazing the character journey that she went through. Cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about Marco Inaros, the villain that I seem to be the only person who thinks he's a really good villain, but I don't care what anyone says. I think Marco's really, to me, he's very realistic of the kind of narcissist, egotistical, political leaders that is very common, dictator like actors that we have in real life throughout history, and so he is the kind of person that you really hate and want to see defeated. But I think the show did a good job at that as showing how despicable this character was. This season, we see his interaction with Philip. We also can talk about Philip as well, how he's sort of riddled with guilt over his part in it, but of course Mark is very sort of insensitive to him, and throughout the season Philip grows sort of distant from him. And then we also introduced the character of Rosenfeld, who I thought was actually a really amazing character, who played his second in command, kind of smarter than him and putting him in his place when he let his ego get the better of him. And I don't know, I personally took a lot of joy of seeing these aliens slowly rip him to shreds molecule by molecule. But anyway, let's start with you, Josh. Josh, what were your feelings on Marco and his whole storyline?
Are there people who didn't like Marco as a villain? Because he's a fantastic villain. He's very hateable. That's what I think makes him such a good villain. Because oh, I cannot wait for them to get this guy, while Alyssa, like Alyssa said at the beginning of the stream, maybe the payoff, because it was so fast, maybe it wasn't quite the payoff that you wanted, but at the end, I mean, he did get what he deserved. He got disassembled molecule by molecule. Maybe it was a little too quick. Maybe they could have taken their time a little bit more. But he's in science fiction. I think he's one of the best villains of the last 20 years, probably. Because he's so evil. He is an evil man, but you can also see his reasoning the entire way, and it's kind of uncomfortable to watch sometimes because you see how he treats his son, and you see how he treats the people around him, but then you can also see his methodology. You're like, fuck, I do not want to see this guy's point. And they kind of make you. But then you're still rooting against him, even though you can see where he's coming from. You're still rooting against him.
Yeah, I do like a couple of moments we get throughout the season where, like, where they say like Marco's not wrong. Like Holden at the end is like he's not wrong. Like he's an asshole. He's evil. He went about the wrong way, but he's ultimately not wrong. And then when Drummer says to Alexarella that Marco and ours was inevitable. If it wasn't going to be him, it was going to be someone else due to the centuries of oppression.
And it could have been somebody even worse.
Someone who was smarter.
Well, like you were saying, Rosenfeld. At the end of the day, Rosenfeld's smarter and more tactical than Marco is. Can you imagine if she had been in charge of the Free Navy? Oh my God, the Inners might not have won this. The Inner Belter Alliance, they might not have won if Rosenfeld was in charge.
All right, Alyssa, lay on your Marco.
Well, first of all, I just have to make clear, like, he's not the worst villain. He's not Borg Queen level or anything like that. He is what he is. I mean, he's fine. I just found him to be kind of two-dimensional, very typical villain. All the things you said about him being realistic, like a realistic, narcissistic world leader kind of thing. Yeah, and I find that uninteresting in a fictional character. It's just not an interesting character to me. But I did love to hate him because I hated him as a character, and I hated him not just that I was rooting against him, but I just thought he was a bad character. So I wanted to see him get torn to shreds, I guess, more slowly and painfully in a longer period of time. But he's fine. Like overall, that's not the worst villain, but I could have done without 2 full seasons focused on this character who I just find to be two-dimensional. But I've talked about it before. This is whatever. He is what he is.
All right, I do want to say hello to a couple of people joining us in the chat. First is Darren from Dean's Reviews. Barcelona! Good to see you joining, Darren. And also Norman joining us late. Norman, thanks so much for joining. Norman's saying, Marco, good villain, but as I said elsewhere, nowhere close to the complexity and intrigue of, say, Gul Dukat, most Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul villains, and even is that supposed to be Anorex from Voyager? Is that who you're getting at? The dude from Year of Hell? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Does anybody come close to Gul Dukat though?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question.
That's a high bar right there.
Yeah, that is a high bar. But you know what? I just watched that documentary for the first time. We left behind what we left behind, or what we left behind. Yeah. And Mark Elmo is an asshole. I don't realize, but it's still.
Oh, really? I didn't notice.
Yeah, he's kind of a dick, and he's kind of a jerk. But he plays a great villain. Maybe because he's a jerk in real life.
What was this documentary? I would be interested in watching.
What we leave behind. It's actually a few years old. I just finally got around to watching it myself.
What we left behind.
What we left behind, right? Because what we leave behind is
there's a poster for it.
Okay, What We Left Behind. All right.
It was a documentary done by the what's his name? Ira Stephen Bear, who the producer, showrunner of Deep Space Nine. He narrated.
If you have Peacock as a streaming service, that's where I watched it. It's on Peacock for free.
Oh, it's on Peacock? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's how I found it.
Watch that when I get a chance.
Yeah, it was on Peacock for free. I just found it. I was like, oh, I've never seen this, so I watched it.
Yeah, I went and saw it in the theater when it first came out. Yeah. But Gul Dukat is kind of a high bar, I think. Although, Gul Dukat had that period where he was like a Pa race follower, and like, I don't know, like he wasn't all that great then. But anyway, I still love Marco. Let's see. Season 6 was Earth or Anti-Free Navy propaganda. Okay, all right. if you say so. I don't know. Like, I kind of, because I remember last year you guys were sort of getting on Marco because he sounded too much like an inner, but in the books they say that he's sort of more educated. And to me, like he always sounds like a belter to me. He always has a pronounced sort of. It's just maybe not as strong, but I think that's sort of kind of.
He sounds like a Colombian drug lord to me. Like he's like he's just. I don't think he's belter at all. I think he's from Colombia.
I don't know. I got just kind of a belter, but pompous. With a little bit of belter with a little bit of British in him.
Yeah, like a pretentious belter. That's what I got.
Yeah. and in his cadence that he spoke was incredibly frustrating to listen to, because it's just like he had these pauses, and it reminded me of W. The way he would pause in the middle of a sentence, little Shatner-esque, a little like and I'm just like, man. But then like he would punctuate his points, and I think he was an absolutely fantastic villain who got what he deserved at the end.
Now, Josh, now that we're talking about Marco and Philip, I have to ask you more about what you meant by Philip. That you hated him just as much as Marco.
Well, maybe hate's the wrong word. I don't think that at the end of the show, I don't think he got what he deserved, because he murdered millions, possibly billions of people. He committed mass murder on a scale that we will never actually see. The only thing worse is when the Empire destroyed Alderaan. Like, that's the scale of destruction this kid unleashed. And so the fact that he got in the escape pod or whatever that was and got away, and he has to live with what he did, but I think he got much better than he deserved.
Well, okay. I mean, that's definitely a point, but I think counterpoint, he was kind of manipulated into doing it by Marco, and that's what he sort of comes to realize this season, because when Marco was like, we chose this life, and Philip's like, did I don't remember actually choosing this life. And he was kind of like bred and kind of forced into it, Marco, and brainwashed to see, to feel like that he's doing the right thing, that he's protecting belters. And it wasn't until like he got older he could understand, and Naomi's help, of course, that what he's actually did, like he didn't know the scope of it, and he was very young and manipulated. The writers of the show make comparisons to real life. I don't know what they're called, but in Africa they have a lot of young youth who are forced into militias and military to do awful things, and they're sort of brainwashed to do it. And so I can feel with him in that regard. I more blame Marco for that genocide, not that he had no part in it whatsoever, but he was, so I don't think he's completely innocent, but I'm happy with that ending personally.
So yeah, I don't know if I would go as far as to say he didn't get what he deserved, but I also kind of was a little disappointed in the story arc too, if I'm being honest. I don't know if it was quite as redemptive as I thought it would be, or that he turned quite the way that I thought he would. Like, what was it, like episode 4 or 5, at the end of episode 4, where he's still standing up and giving that speech, and it's the one that Rosenfeld ends up playing for Marco later. I was kind of annoyed by that. Like I know that he didn't really mean it, and he's just doing that, but I don't know. I think he went back and forth too much. I would have liked to see more of a straight line throughout season 6, as far as his guilt, his feeling guilt for what he did, and then redeeming himself as best as he could. Like, I feel like he frustratingly went back to Marco too often, or at least vocalized that he was on Marco's side too often throughout the season. For my taste, I would have rather seen more of a straight line as far as his guilt and his turn for Marco. And because I had mentioned when we did our discussions of some of the first episode that I felt, or the first couple of episodes, I think it was episode 2, that I could see that he was feeling guilty for participating in genocide. So I can see where Josh is coming from, because I don't know if it showed that he was feeling guilty enough by the end of it. So yeah, I'm not completely satisfied with his story arc either.
And it's not even that they didn't. Sorry, Mark.
No,
It's not even that they didn't like show his guilt enough for me. To me, he didn't push back against Marco enough. He stood up to him once or twice, and then he left. Like, there's no redemption there. He just said, "You know what? Peace out. I'm done." There's still no redemption.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Alyssa.
I was just going to say, I kind of agree with that. He didn't push back against Marco enough. In fact, I point again to that end of the episode 4 where he was standing up and defending Marco again. That was like that was just really frustrating.
But yeah, that was episode 3 when he was like flat out where Marco's like, "You failed." It's like, "No, you failed." Like that was.
Yeah, and I remember pointing out that I loved that scene, but then I felt he went backward after that. Like it wasn't a straight line.
And he did nothing to stop Marco.
Yeah,
he just left.
I like how plausible would it be for him to try to stop Marco? He wouldn't have.
Do we want it to be plausible all the time?
I mean, yeah, but what would be the point if he would instantly get thrown out the airlock, like so he can die in water? Like, I don't know. I don't think there's anything he really could have done in that situation.
If he did it under the radar, he would get thrown out there.
But it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't strike me as the smartest bulb.
Yeah. I don't know. I think he could have done better than giving a big speech in support of Marco at the end of episode 4.
I think he could have done better than leaving. Yeah. He could have done literally anything else. Just leave.
Like, I think leaving was the best option for him because he wasn't going to stop Marco. Like, nothing he would have done.
He could have tried.
And accomplished nothing. Like, I don't know.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he.
I think it matters. I don't know. Anyway, I don't think the point is necessarily that it's a redemption arc. I don't really see it for that. I see it as more if he realizes that he never should have went to Marco with it.
No, if I said redemption arc, those were the wrong choice of words.
I think Josh said use.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I think it was more. I wanted to see him, especially after the first couple episodes, like the guilt really settling in and him just doing a straight line away from Marco. Instead, he just kept going back and forth, and I found it kind of frustrating.
I get that, though, because he was in this, like, he wasn't completely 100% there, and he was trying to convince himself, like, because that's the only life he knew, so that he was going back and forth.
And that bugged me. That bugged me.
I don't know. Anyway, really quick, I do want to jump in the chat because I got a couple super chats from Chriso. $2 super chat saying Marco thought he was above all the other builders, was absolutely the case. And also saying that he can say he may have been manipulated, or talking about Philip now, he may have been manipulated, but he was also proud of it at times. I mean, because he was conditioned to be proud of it. I think he eventually came around to it, but anyway. I just wondering what they're saying in the chat about Philip. Dina says Philip walked away just like his mom told him to. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Norman Buckle said, I better about Philip going back and forth. I think that meant Norman. Okay. And if Philip was going to be more pacifist, then he did what makes sense, especially since he thought what Marco was about to do was crazy. So they're all defending Philip as well, and I kind of agree with them. Musical Aviator says Philip in the books didn't even walk out. He pretty much just decided not to show up for lunch that day. Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. That's true. And the show added the extra element of that one guy, which again I thought those scenes went way too long. Where the guy set the bomb that killed his brother, or whatever. So that was the sort of final thing. Where in the books it was more of Marco just keep being an asshole to Philip and showing that he didn't really give a fuck about him and was just using him.
Can I say something about that guy?
Yes.
I kind of thought it was unnecessary. I thought Philip already had everything he needed to do, needed to turn against Marco. So when, you complained about whatever episode it was, episode 4, with that, where they wasted time with that guy, and I agree with you. I don't know that it was ever worth it to have that character on there because I feel like there was plenty ammunition there for Philip to turn on Marco or to leave Marco, whatever the case may be, without having that guy in there. But that, I don't know. I thought it was like extra.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I would take less of that and more of the resurrection dogs. Absolutely.
I'm trying to find. I know someone in the chat mentioned earlier. I think I lost it, but they mentioned that the in the books the casualty rate of Earth that Philip calls with the rocks was a lot higher, and I noticed that when we covered season 5. But they point out in the chat that was the producers, like the studio, told them to lower the amount. I'm like, oh, that's stupid. Like you lower the amount for the show. But whatever. Alex is saying I disagree. Tadio, I believe is the name of the Belter guy who lost his brother, was a great addition to the show. Okay, well, we can agree to disagree.
Yeah, I just responded. But was he necessary? Was that character necessary to advance Philip's story? I say no, but that's maybe that's my.
I mean, it holds, but yeah, was it really necessary? Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I think they could have ditched him and then spent more time in the finale leading up to the impossible situation where they all thought they were going to die. But anyway.
I think they should have taken that time and put it right there in the finale with more build up to show that impossible situation they were in. I agree.
All right. So, any further thoughts on Rosenfeld before we move on? I was actually kind of sad when she died. She's like the villain.
Yeah. I agree. I was kind of bummed when she died. I thought she was a fantastic sidekick / henchman for Marco and a very underrated character.
And I did like that did seem to be the straw that broke the camel's back for Philip as well, that Marco just didn't give a shit about Rosenfeld. So her death definitely served a purpose in the story for Philip. But yeah, and I was kind of sad when she died too. I thought she was a really good character.
And then Krista says, was the 40 minutes of Naomi's heavy breathing necessary? If you're talking about season 5, I agree that could have been condensed a bit, but still, we're not talking.
It wasn't just 40 minutes of her non-stop heavy breathing. That's a little bit of an exaggeration. But yeah, I think they could have cut that back a little bit.
But there was a lot of nuances in the scene, all the shit that she was trying to do, the lack of resource. And they were actually talking about how they purposely, because in the book you hear the narration, you have the written word that narrates everything. In the show they thought, oh, should we have like her inner monologue, or should we have someone explaining what she's doing? But they actually took the bold choice of, no, we'll just show you what she's doing. And so there's a lot of nuance to those things. But yeah, they were a bit too long though. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on over to Alexarella, Queen of Earth. I think she had an amazing character. Talking about amazing character arc, she's had an amazing character arc through the show, and I love how they even call back to it. She's like, "How can the Belters trust me? Because just 5 years ago or 6 years, however long it was, I was torturing Belters, hanging them on hooks and having them gravity torture or whatever." And she's saying and she even knew this, she's like, Belters have every reason not to trust me. And then I also talked about how in season 2, she, even though she had learned that Aaron Wright was the real enemy and she wasn't working, and she was working with Fred Johnson behind the scenes, she still had a very public face of being, fuck you Belters, I held the belt, because she had to put on that facade in order to deceive Aaron Wright. So that even further gave her made the Belters think less of her. And so she knew that when she wanted to make an alliance of truce with them, that she was going to have a hard road, and that she had given them good reason not to trust her. So she goes out of her way to earn that trust. But of course, really, she was the one smart enough, because all the other UN military guys just wanted to go in and abandon them and leave the civilians to die, or just go in and kill civilian targets like in last season. But she knew that was the absolutely wrong way to handle that was just going to give Marco more support, and that her best strength was was to support an actual belter like Drummer who would take support away from Marco. And ultimately, I think is that sort of brilliance and recognizing the flaws in her own character. That is why they succeeded and is why she succeeded. And also, I actually liked Monica Stewart in this season. I'm usually not that big on her, but I think Monica Stewart was there to sort of push Alexarella in the right direction, where she made that the news footage about the Lucky Earther, like the belter and that little cat, the Lucky Earther, was so nice, and Alexarella saying, "Oh, this makes us look weak," and Monica was like, "Yeah, well, that's the whole point. It makes us all look weak." She's like, "I don't think this is gonna appeal to belters." She's like, "Well, that's not my target audience," and that's what Alexarella realized it was about, making the Earthers sympathize with the belt as well, and that they all needed to come together. And then even at the end, when Holden did that tricky thing on her, that she could see, like, she capitulated pretty quickly because she could see that he was right. It just wasn't politically viable for her to do it, but he made it politically viable, and he's like, "Okay, we'll do it your way." And she had the wisdom to do that. So yeah, she didn't have any any quirky remarks as much. She had a couple this season, but nothing like badass that she had in like season 2. It was like, "Where are you going with this? Wherever the hell I like." But she was still awesome. I still love their character story this season. Josh, what were your thoughts on Alexarella?
I think she is a fantastic character, and talking about her performance, she elevated every single scene that she was in for the entire series. She brought everyone's performance up to her level. It was absolutely just amazing to watch. I missed the zingers this season. What are you gonna do? Whatever the fuck I want. Just but what I loved about that character is she might not be the most ethical, moral person in the room, but she's almost always the smartest person in the room. And that's really interesting to have a character who's like that, who's usually on the well, not usually, but sometimes on the wrong side of a moral quandary. But she's also the smartest person in the room. But at the end of the day, like you said, she did kind of capitulate to Holden and kind of see that probably his way of doing things is the best way this time.
Cool. And Alyssa, your thoughts on Alexarella?
Well, Alexarella has always been one of my favorite characters on the show, and a lot of it had to do with those zingers in the early seasons. She had some really great lines. I lost a little bit, of everything with season 4 when she was running for Secretary General again. That was probably my least favorite storyline of hers. But then I think she recovered in season 5, and this is a great story arc by the end of season 6. And yeah, I kind of missed the zingers too, but it didn't bother me that much because I was really interested in her development and how you're right. They contrasted where she is now with where she was before by bringing up how she space that belter and at the beginning of the series. So you see how far she's come. So I was just really, really wrapped up in her story arc this year. And I agree about Monica too. Yet another character I really hated in season 3, who I grew to love in season 6. I just really did not like the second half of season 3. And there was a lot of characters I did not like who I now like. And Monica was a good foil for Alexarella and to kind of make her think about things in season 6. I really love that as well.
I never warmed up to Monica. Like, ever since season 3, I never, like, I saw exactly what she was trying to do. I understood her position, but I never warmed up to her after season 3.
I kind of like the scene where, she says hello to Holden. They're being like very friendly. "Oh, Monica, Holden, oh, great to see you. Hey, can I get an inside exclusive interview?" It was like, haha, never, ever, ever again. Like, that was kind of nice. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of liked her this season. I didn't think like she was the best character ever, but I do definitely think they improved her a bit. Now in the chat, Peter points out saw a brilliant meme about an Expanse spinoff involving Alexarella reading the phone book wearing extravagant outfits. I'd watch that show.
Yeah, but is she gonna give like little zingers in between the phone book, like make some comments about people's names? Like
Yeah, if she roasts the names, I'll watch that show.
yeah.
I'm trying to remember. She had a good zinger this season. Something about when I think it was when Mars wanted to go out and to take over the ring gate. It's just like, oh, is it really important that we need to go out there and prove our manhood or something like that? Yeah, it definitely wasn't season 2 quality, but I think she had a couple of zingers throughout. So Peter also brings up a good point that I thought was kind of missing from the books, because in the books they specify that Marco's whole reason for his attacks is that he's afraid that the Belters are going to become extinct because of the ring gates and all the planets that are being colonized, and many Belters cannot colonize it because their bones would be crushed. Like Naomi, for example, couldn't live on the gravity well, and so his main fear is that the inners wouldn't give a shit and would just leave the Belters to suffocate because their resources are no longer needed, because now they have all these alien worlds that they can't live on. And so that was part of his motivation, was to close the ring gates so they wouldn't have access to those alien worlds, so they'd be forced to rely on the belt. And so that was Holden's fix with the transport union, was to give the Belters something to do so they wouldn't go extinct, so they could, their purpose would be, and it would be extremely vital service of ferrying all the supplies to and from the ring worlds, which I guess the transport union didn't feel as necessary without that explanation. I honestly don't know why they got rid of that explanation and motivation. As people who didn't read the books, do you think that does that make sense at all? Was something missing, or does it make no difference whatsoever?
No, I pretty much got it. I didn't think it needed to be expanded on any.
Yeah, same. I didn't feel like anything was missing.
Right.
I think that can be a downfall of reading the book that you know what's missing. You're like, oh, that was missing, but I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it.
Okay, well, I didn't, honestly. I kind of was complaining about more in season 5. I kind of just got over it in season 6. I don't know. To me, it's like a small detail where I don't see what you lose by not including it, but it doesn't like totally hurt the show by not including it. Though it's just for me, it was a weird choice. The new Moi 2022 says, how does the show do characters who are in for only one or a few episodes and you'll cry depending what the show is trying to picture? Yeah, I mean, it does an amazing job. Rosenfeld, Walker, characters you barely knew yet you really got invested in. And, of course, the Lucky Earther. But anyway, so let's talk about everyone's favorite storyline, the highlight of season 6, the Laconia storyline, the short story.
Well, Josh liked it.
Oh, did he? I thought he said he didn't like it.
No, you were saying he wanted more of it. I wanted less of it. I wanted it not to be there at all. I wanted it to be in its own separate movie.
I got so invested in those kids. I was like, I want to know where they are, and I didn't get to see it by the end of the episode.
Well, see, I'll tell you that this is because it's based on a short story, and where they ended in the show is exactly where the short story ends. So it's implied, and maybe the show didn't make this very clear in the short stories, but clearer. But it was implied that the little boy's not going to turn into a proto monster. It's a different situation. It was just a repair drone that brought him back to life. So he's still him with the same feelings and emotion, but yet he's brought back to life by alien technology, so he has alien elements, so he's a bit off and weird, but that's about it. And the main point is that the girl couldn't relate to the parents because her parents were from Earth and they were looking at everything from an Earth perspective, but she saw Laconia as her home, so she thought it was kind of natural, and being a young kid didn't really see the big deal out of this weird alien technology bringing her little brother back to life, and so was very upset when her parents reacted the way they did, and so that's why she ran off in the jungle with him. And it's implied through her line where he's like, hey, you can't eat anything out here, you're gonna die. She's like, it's okay if I die, because the dogs will bring me back. And spoilers, that's what happens. She dies, and the dogs bring her back as well. And of course, these characters both appeared in later books. I won't say more than that, but that's basically where the short story ends. So it ends pretty much where it ended in the show. So, Josh, are you still thinking you would have wanted more, or does that?
Yeah, I mean, if they could have just thrown something in there, just to kind of, because it felt it ended at a weird spot, with them running through the forest, which is a fine way to end a short story. But for something that they've teased throughout the season, I feel like ending it there was just a little abrupt. And I knew that we weren't going to get it, because that was always like the first part of an episode. And so when it ended, I'm like, well, I guess that story's over. I would sure like to know more.
Well, read the books, I guess.
I'm going to have to. That's a whole lot of words, man.
I don't know. See, Alyssa, it's not just you, and it's not just Darren or Rob or other people I talk to over the internet. This is chief and amongst the biggest complaint I see overall about season 6. Saying, "Oh, I love this season, but do we really need that little storyline at the start of each episode? What's going on in Laconia?"
No, that's the thing. We didn't need it. I ended up really enjoying it, though.
So Peter said in the chat, if my suspicions hold true, the inclusion of stray dogs when unnecessary to the main story is a strong statement. They intend to at least try to bring up books 7 to screen. Yeah, I get that. But could you still have done that in a movie like after season 6 finished? I still think it should have been its own separate, like either 2-hour movie or hour and a half, however long they need to take it, its own separate thing. That's like a special on Amazon Prime that they air after season 6 that is not taking up valuable time. Every time it came on, I was like, can we get to the characters I care about now? And in the beginning, it felt very jarring to me. I didn't know what the hell was happening. And then Mark, I watched your review and you're like, oh, this is a short story, blah, blah, blah. I had no idea. So I needed you to tell me that. And if I, as a show watcher only, need somebody read the book to explain it to me, then it's not good television. Like, you need to be able to speak to book readers and non-book readers. And I feel like The Expanse did an amazing job with that all throughout its run, except for that. Like that, I felt like I was deliberately excluded. Like I needed you book readers to hold my hand and explain to me that, oh, it's a separate short story and it has to do with books 7 and 9. I wouldn't know that on my own. So that's what just really threw me off on it. And by the end of it, I was just like, I'm mildly interested in it, but I still wish that there was this. Like, it's not that I'm not interested in it. It's just like I would rather it be a separate thing. I would rather the 5 minutes from the finale be taken again, put it in that scene with the build up for the showdown with Marco. Would have been better for me.
Yeah, and I loved it, but that's because I knew I was a book reader and I got the reference. And I still think though that it would have been better. I totally agree, and I think Norman was saying the same thing. Norman Buckwell in the chat saying Strange Dogs should have been an extra, or better yet, a strong preface to season 7. Rather than included here. I think it should have been its own like short film or thing released separately. Like, wow, it's something to fill the void before we get the things. And honestly, the reason why I think it would have worked better that way is because I think splitting it up over the 6 episodes felt very disorientating. And I think if they gave it to us one shot, since it had absolutely nothing to do with anything else, that it would have worked better. Because I still feel like the short story was like, I thought was amazing. Like when I read that, I was like, it hit me. I was powerful, and I didn't get that from the show. And I think part of it was because they divided it between several episodes. Had they adapted it in one show and maybe made it a bit longer, because I felt like they rushed parts of it too to try to fit it in that format. So I think they would have been able to do it better justice had they had made its own separate thing, maybe like an hour-long special. Now in the chat, Dina was saying, I love the strange dogs added to the show. If anything, it finally introduced Duarte, who should have appeared in season 5, which I also love that. But if you haven't read the books, Duarte means nothing to you. So again, it's like what Alyssa's saying, that is just for people who have read the books.
Yeah, well, I will say that, but there's the one scene between Duarte and Marco. Well, he's watching the recording of Duarte. If he wasn't in the Strange Dog storyline, I would have no idea who that was. So, I mean, that's like the only way that it tied into the main storyline at all. But, like Dina said, it should have been in season 5. Like if they'd introduced him in season 5, then that solves that problem. That's really the only thing that it added to the rest of the story is, oh, I know who that guy is that Marco's talking to right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Chris is saying if they were introducing Duarte to a better end, then it would have been worth it, considering there's now more seasons to speak of. Yeah, I don't know why when they didn't introduce him to season 5, I thought they weren't going to introduce him until the possible season 7, 8, 9, so they could do the casting then and not have to worry about being tethered to the actor. But now they introduce him to the season 6, so now they are tethered to this actor. So I don't know why
they could recast him, I guess, but yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, but why not just reintroduce him in season 5? Like, because at the end they name dropped him in season 5, saying that he was the leader of the Splinter Group. But why not show? I don't know. I don't know. I was just reading all the different opinions. Yeah, it does seem like, because I think Belinda was here last week and she said it seems like people who have read the books really like this Strange Dog stuff and the Laconia stuff, and people haven't, not so big on it. And I agree, that's the case, and that's not a good thing. Like, as Alyssa, as you said, most of the stuff the Expanse does was open to everyone. Like, you hadn't had to read the books to appreciate it. Anyway, so Josh, but you're saying that you did like the storyline a lot.
I really did, but I do agree that it would probably be better if they like do what like The Walking Dead did with like their little webisodes. They could have done something like that and made it separate from the show, and then maybe added some more details like the lead up to the showdown, like what Alyssa said. That would have been definitely better, but that doesn't mean I didn't like this that little arc. In fact, I wanted to more of a resolution to it. So, like I said, I got really invested in those kids. So, I wanted to know where they ended up.
And Alyssa, you're saying you didn't really care about the kids at all, or you kind of did, but it wasn't really important.
Yeah, I mean, by the end of it, I warmed up to them a little bit, but it still overall felt like I would rather be spending more time with the characters that I've been caring about, and save these kids. I would have been able to care about the kids more if it wasn't its own separate thing.
And yeah, jumping in the chat again, Peter's saying that they name dropped Duarte in season 4, actually on Bobby's terminal, and the Martian involved with protomolecule research, etc. Yes, I did recognize that, and I pointed that out when I first saw it, but no one who's ever read the books is going to notice that. Only people who are looking for Duarte will ever notice that, which is why I only mentioned the season 5, because even those who haven't read the books could still recognize that they mentioned him in season 5.
I didn't. Only because you don't. But
yeah. And Chris is saying, funny that Duarte tells Marco we have gods to kill, then gets killed by those same gods. Oh yeah. I didn't think about that. That Marco gets killed by the gods that Duarte said he had to kill. Alex said having Duarte in the show was important to understand how Marco got powerful and how Marco was just a distraction for Laconia. I mean, I think the books Duarte didn't really appear in the books in books 5 or 6, and you still got that. Like, I don't think you need to see Duarte to get that. You just need to have it explained, which they could have done. But anyway, I think it's about time to bring this discussion to a close. I guess I gotta end on giving the season 6 of The Expanse a rating between 1 and 10. 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. I, of course, am giving this a 10, as I said. One of the best seasons of all time. Josh, I assume you're going to do likewise?
I'm going to say a 9.8.
Oh, really?
I can't give it a perfect score, but
well,
it's
all right,
damn near perfect.
I will say I use a different scale. When I say
okay.
10, I round up. I either give it a
okay.
9
If we're rounding, it's a 10.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Yeah, because you know me, I don't like the decimal points. What the fuck is that?
Oh, I love it.
Anyway,
I like to do decimal points when I'm stuck between, like if I'm stuck between a 7 and an 8 and I can't decide, 7.5. That's what I do. I only do 0.5s. I don't do 0.8s or anything like that. But if you're asking my rating, I agree with Norman Buckwald in the chat. 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. All right.
So you're thinking like I don't like it as much as yeah, it's not a 10, but it's not like I hate it. I still think it's a really good season.
Hey, I know that. I know that you love it, just not as much as me. I know.
And Brandon is with me as well. 9 out of 10 from Brandon
okay.
as well.
9 out of 10 as well. All right. Well, you haters out there. They're definitely holding it up very high. Well,
Alyssa said such nice things about this season, but then you said you hated it. I don't understand.
She gave it a 9 out of 10. Gee. No, that's how I feel whenever I talk about Best of Both Worlds from Next Generations. Everyone's favorite episode, I said give it an 8 out of 10. People act like I absolutely despise and hate it.
How dare you?
But anyway, another super chat, this time $10 from Chris is saying, off topic, but how would you compare the 9th episode of Mr. Robot Conflict compared to the season finale in terms of how good they are? Oh, Mr. Robot now? What even happened? I don't remember. It's been too long since I've seen that.
Yeah, I don't. What happened in that episode? Conflict? I don't. You would have to like describe it for me.
I was disappointed in the series finale. I will say that.
Yeah.
I think the Expanse series finale is far superior.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I've seen one episode of Mr. Robot, so I can't contribute.
Brandon in the chat saying, Alyssa, don't let the boys pick on you. Yeah, we're just kidding.
I got Brandon and Norman on my side. Haters, a 9 out of 10. All haters.
All right. Let's see. Chris is saying they were able to steal all the money from the secret group. Oh yeah, that was okay. That was fine, I guess. I mean, how would you compare that compared to the season finale of Mr. Robot? Yeah, it was way better. I didn't like that series finale. But anyway, well, we're talking about that show. Anyway, let's go ahead and bring things into it and close now. We'll give a shout out to special guests where you guys can find them. First, we'll start with Josh. Josh, my friend.
Hey, I'm Josh. My wife and I have a YouTube channel called Geeksiders. Right now, we are reviewing Critical Role. Not really reviewing, discussing, because it's a D&D game. You can't really review it. So we talk about it. So if you're interested in that, come check us out, Geeksiders.
Awesome. And yes, Josh, thanks so much for when you contacted me, asked to do this. I was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. And Alyssa, where people can find you and what are you up to?
And Alyssa Jean Reviews. I am dropping 1 or 2, usually 2 videos every single Friday. And then lately I've been just kind of jumping on and doing random live chats whenever I want to talk about something. Like I did one before we came on this evening to talk about the new Picard trailer and the Quantum Leap reboot that they're doing. So I did a little. So check it. Oh, you're acting surprised.
I've heard of it, but did they give more? I just saw vague rumblings. I didn't know that.
No, it's been greenlit for a pilot. Not necessarily the show has been picked up.
Okay.
Which, sorry, I had to take my headphones off for a second. What was that? What's getting the pilot?
Quantum Leap.
Yes, yeah, I did see that the other day.
Well, Mark, go back and everyone else, go back and go over to my channel and watch the live chat that I did earlier this evening, and Brandon was there. Brandon, I can always count on you to show up for them. But I'm also releasing videos related to Star Trek, related to transition issues, and related to various shows. I did Wheel of Time when it's on. I definitely cover the MCU. I look forward to covering both Discovery and Picard when they pick up again. So, and definitely Strange New Worlds too. So check it out.
All right, so my name is Mark. If you're finding me for the first time, my channel is Enchantment of Eternity. I do mainly Star Trek stuff, covering Star Trek Prodigy at the moment, doing a lot of retro reviews. I am finally watching the original series, where I'm going to review every episode one season at a time, and it's just so outdated. Spock! But anyway, that's gonna coming up on my channel in a month. And as far as the Expanse goes, I am going to rate every single episode from my least favorite episode to my favorite episode. It's probably going to be like a 3-hour long video. I have seen this show enough. I've seen it a lot of times, but I will I don't think I have time to rewatch the entire show, but I'm going to go through and remind myself real quick of each episode, scan through the episodes before I make my list, and that's going to be a blast. Anyway, also covering other stuff on my channel, like Star Wars Clone Wars up to season 5. We'll be doing season 6 next month. So yeah, be sure to check me out on that. So I want to thank everyone for joining in the chat. Dina, Brandon, Peter, Chriso, and everyone else who joined in the chat. Thank you so much for your participation. Alex, good to see you all here. And everyone watching, and also everyone watching in the archives, thanks so much for joining us for this discussion. And so we shall see you guys later. Thanks so much. Load up.